Hey guys, Tim here, back with another episode of the Chicago Northwestern Harvard Subdivision and N Scale. And it's been way too long since my last video, but as a teacher, my time during this part of the year is pretty limited. And in the past couple months, I've taken some trips, one for work, but then we also took the kids down to Disney World during our fall break. And so I haven't had a ton of concrete time for hobby, but I always made sure to kind of do a little bit at a time. I tried to force myself to do, even just 30 minutes a night of hobby time just to kind of keep the progress going. And so here's what I've been up to in bits and pieces between everything going on. So one of the first things I wanted to do was to get up the backdrop around where I had extended the hardboard around into the new addition, and so I laid it out and cut it to size, and you can see here I'm getting it down. I didn't want it to run all the way over because this will be where it curves over to the new wall that I'll be building, but this is far enough, and it was nice to get that done. The next thing I wanted to work on was to do more of the scenery in the pretty finished part of the layout. I wanted to go back through and add some more static grass to make that embankment a little more consistent. Just because I didn't like it. Looked a little too patchy. There was a little too color variation compared to the actual when I looked at the prototype for how it looked. And so you can see here I slowly worked my way down, filling in the gaps and placing more static grass. And the main reason I'm focusing on scenery again is because I haven't had a ton of concrete, extended periods of time. And here's what it looks like as the glue's drying. You can see I think it looks a lot better. But also because I'm waiting again to do the next big piece, which is to build. I need to get the wall framed. I'm hoping to do that over winter break, and then I'll be able to go back and focus much more on extending the layout, laying down a lot more track. And it was a nice, honestly, change of pace to focus more on the scenery side. So you can see with the grass there, I really liked how it looked. So then the next goal was I wanted to work a little bit more on this frontage road right up here at the front. Above the fascia. So I painted the curb, and then I went ahead and laid the road markings down. So the stripes, and they do the real frontage road that has just the single yellow stripes along with the white line on the side there. And then I went through. This is my first time using, and I definitely had some lessons learned, but using some weathering powders to try and have that color variation. I felt like it was a little too strong at certain points, and I went back through and tried to moderate it a little bit. But as I was working on that, the next thing I did was I wanted to lay down. I used Woodland Scenic Smooth It to lay the concrete pad for Heller lumber. So you can see I taped it off. I did make one goof. You can see there's kind of a slight down slope on the height for the Smooth It where the track height ended. But I actually kind of liked it. You want to have some degree of imperfection. Now you can see there, for some reason the plastic card I was using, it didn't quite smoothly distribute like I wanted it to. So I did go back through after it dried a little bit. I went back through just with some spackling. But then I took the backside of an X-Acto knife to kind of clear out around the rails. To test and make sure that, yes, the center beams could go down there smoothly, which they did. I then taped it off again and laid down kind of just the first coat of gray for the concrete. Again, I used an airbrush for this, and I wanted there to be some inconsistency in coloring. I'm going to go back through and, again, use some weathering powders and other things. But as I was letting that sit, it was time for me to shift gears and work on those row houses that had been sitting unpainted in the background for a while. So, this is a kit I was excited to paint. You can see it's got, it's got brick segments, and then it's got segments that just have wood siding. And the reason I picked these is because there's a development that is very similar to this right next to Heller Lumber that's got some houses that have a brick front, some houses that have a wood siding front. So I started then I did a mix of a couple different Vallejo air colors to get the brick color that I wanted. I figured I would start with that, and then I could tape that off. And then I did want to have some variation. As you can see here, I wanted to have some green, some truly white, and then kind of a cream. And I also laid down the base coat for Heller Lumber. as well, so that way I could get that done. Um, I forgot to record some clips of this. I did use a really light wash to help do the mortar for the brick, and you can definitely tell a difference. But then after that, I did the painstaking work of painting the shutters and the trim and the doors and everything, which, man, at N scale, that definitely that definitely takes a while. And so I kept working on that through with the different colors as well. That was my goal. Again, this is where working 30 minutes to an hour at a time really kind of came in handy. I then did white for the Heller lumber, as you can see back there, because that's the color of the actual building. Then it was time for me to work on the roof. I went with a black. I did mix it with a little bit of a gray because I didn't want it to be a flat black, and I did a little bit to help give it some color variation. And you can start to see, and I just loosely test fit the pieces. You can start to see it all coming together, and I really liked how it worked or how it was looking. And my goal with working on this was, you can see I've got the chimneys painted back there. Was again 30 minutes to an hour at a time. Really allows you to get a lot done as long as you keep up with it. And so I went back and you can see I painted the window frames in the roof, obviously, and I just wanted to kind of lay it out there and see what it looked like. And it looked awesome as a background, as a line of background buildings. And the next step then was to put the porches all together. So I used some painter's tape on a cardboard box, so that way I could get everything painted here. A couple of the porch posts were damaged, which was an issue. But the other thing I did was I didn't take the film off of this yet, but I had some sheets of just clear that I could use for the window panes, and I used some paint bottles to hold those pieces down on the interior, because I do want to eventually light the interiors of these. And this kit has the holes where you can put the wires up from underneath, so that way you can do that. And you can already tell, it's amazing how much of a difference it makes to actually have those clear pieces in, to simulate the glass in terms of how it looks from a distance. And so you can see here, after I painted the roof sections of the porch, I just did a quick test fit of how this was all going to look. And then I started slowly working my way through, again, painting. You just got to be, I've learned you really just have to be patient if you want to do N-scale buildings with any kind of measure of detail. And as long as you're patient, you'll be rewarded with that. And so this was me working on the porches. I wanted to have the white paint for the railing and the posts, gray obviously for the concrete. The next thing I worked on was, I've got the stoppers. I found a shapeways kit for sidings, and I wanted to put obviously a couple in for Heller lumber. So I did it with a yellow, but then I went through and weathered it, and I did a little sponge dabbing technique to put a little brown on there too. And I thought this was the clip that had it on there. But you can see the stoppers in here as I'm working on now the foreground. I wanted to make sure that the scenery went up to the, I didn't want to just have like an awkward, abrupt concrete pad. The actual Heller lumber has a lot of bushes and trees that go right up to the fence line, and I wanted to replicate that, and I thought that would be a good piece for me to work on. And I also picked up a kit for, these are kind of the lumber racks that you can then put the lumber on after they've been delivered. The way the actual Heller lumber does theirs, though, is they don't use both sides, and so I did trim those down. Then I went through and did the slow process of putting in the Walthers industrial fence kit. And I need to figure out a way to tone down the shine a little bit. I don't know. I'm trying to get the camera to focus so you can see what I mean. I don't know if I might just spray with a matte finish, but it's a little too shiny for where we're at. So then you can see what I mean here when I say I clipped half of these lumber racks, because again, the actual Heller lumber, and I wanted to keep pretty close to the prototype, they just have them standing flush with the fence line, so they only have them obviously facing one way. I wanted to do a metallic paint as the undercoat for these, because in real life, if you look at these, they're pretty, they got a pretty oxidized color to them, but I didn't want it to be a flat brown. I thought at that scale it would come off looking a little too flat if I just went straight for the oxidized colors. So you can see what I did here. I painted the oxidized, and then I went back through with a sponge and dabbed some of the metallic back on. And I have a few different trees that I had picked up pretty cheap. I think I'm going to end up pulling these. I don't like the color of the bark. It looks a little too... it needs to be a little bit more gray. And I asked for some Cena trees, some tree kits for Christmas, so we'll see if I get those. But you can see... So to show you how much of a difference this has made, this is a clip I showed in an earlier episode of, a couple Metro trains going through the scene. And you can tell, obviously, this is before I even laid grass or ballast or anything. And I wanted to kind of recreate this scene with two Metro trains passing each other, so you can see the difference that it makes. And part of me, I'll show you this clip first before I share my observations. So you can see, I think it's a huge improvement. And I'm glad I did this, because when I look at this, and I look at the rest of the layout, part of me goes, man, like I put in all this effort and it really only affected a small corner of the layout. But then I realized that's kind of the cool part of N-Scale, is that, you can have that much detail and that much depth to your layout. The only other thing I wanted to share in this update is, Scale Trains has come out with two awesome announcements. They're doing a rivet counter run of Chicago Northwestern -9s, and I have ordered 5 of them, because with sound. Just because, this is going to round off my -9 fleet, and I mean, Scale Trains does a great job. But then, just icing on the cake, they also announced they're coming out with SD42s, and again, prototype specific. And I ordered one of these because I figured this would be the perfect locomotive to run the local on the Harvard sub. So I can't wait. They're not going to get here until June, but I can't wait nonetheless. It's going to be great. So again, that's what I've been able to do in the little bits of free time that I've had. I'm excited to share my next update with you. I'll probably do a post-Christmas just to kind of show you. I asked for a lot of train-related things for Christmas, so I hope I have some cool toys to show you. But regardless, I want to give you an update and let you know what's going on with the layout. So thanks again, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm hoping that within an episode or two, you'll again see the wall getting framed, so that way you can see more construction progress continue, because I really want to get this entire first level of the layout done as soon as possible so I can start to really run some trains and do even some operations stuff. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.